Welcome everyone to the 140th edition of the Nuthouse Podcast, brought to you by boxasylum.com. I'm your host Andy Patterson. With me today I've got Adam Smith, Alex Morris, Dave the Hater, Kurt Ward, and somewhere in the background we've got Paul Webb, who will be joining us just shortly. Now, one can wonder what the majority of the lads are wanting to be talking about at the top of the show. I believe a few listeners are going to be calling in, so if you want to call in, if you just hit up Kurt or Alex, but just to let you know, you need a Gmail account in order to call in. We also want to hear from the Matchroom Bum Boys to defend their corner, because not many on this show I don't think is going to defend them, because by and large, from the comments I read on various online forums, Twitter and sites, etc., there's a lot of discontent, and I've got to admit, I got involved in some on the bandwagon last night, started stirring some shit up just to kind of get a reaction, which I happily did. Now, some of the Matchroom followers, I think they're starting to turn a little bit. The crowd certainly turned last night. Then we've seen some of the supposed top writers in America now comment on this card, and according to some of them, it was just pretty horrific. Me, on the other hand, except for watching Chris Eubank against Johnny Drama, I actually watched Paul Ingle stop Junior Jones from 15 years ago at Madison Square Garden on the undercard of Lennox Lewis against Michael Grant, and guess what? That card was pay-per-view. Now, last night, it could have been pay-per-view. Some will want to weigh in heavily about how last night's card was pretty shocking, from what I hear. But do we give Eddie Hearn some sort of slack because of the pullouts that seemingly probably were out with his control? Gavin getting run over at Matt Hamilton disputes and Brooks' apparent rib injury. Maybe you could do that, but at the end of the day is you've got to look at how long it dragged on as well for Brooks' announcement for his opponent. Chavez was announced pay-per-view after Klitschko Fury got added to it. It then gets pulled from pay-per-view, and then Brook then pulls out. People are pissed. Some fans have made bookings to go last night. Some were pretty much short-changed and probably had to go regardless and get fed, or basically as they were going to get done their money, basically. And especially when you had to take into account bookings for travels and hotels and that, but I do think the tickets were refunded. But before we do get into it, I want one-word answers from the lads here. The question is, guys, just simple fact, except for the Eubank Jr drama fight, did you watch any of the card? Adam?
I only watched Lee Wood fight last night. I didn't watch any other fights.
That's some one word, that is. Alex?
Well, it's not a one-word answer, is it? That sort of question, I suppose. I'm siding with Adam on this. I'm just going to say AIDS, because that's what it was.
Kurt?
Nope.
That's how I like it. Dave?
Nothing.
I think we've got Paul on the either, so I don't think we can get his comment on it.
Yes.
So, oh fuck, I did watch it, so the discontent isn't as clear as what I thought it would have been. But anyway, negativity, well, I don't think it can be negativity. So, as I've said, Matchroom backers have really turned full heel, especially last night was really a wash with it. Our very own Adam Smith issued an article this morning titled Matchroom 2015, What a Year. At 1:30 this morning he actually issued this article. Now that tells you how pissed off, or maybe just plain up pissed that he was. People promising to cancel the Sky Sports subscriptions. Yours truly will be cut off by the end of this week, or end of next week, sorry, which I'm actually looking forward to. So, my plea to you guys, if you're fed up being presented with what you're getting fucking shown every week, I implore you to vote with your wallets, okay? Keep them shut, phone up Sky, and tell them I want to cancel my sports subscription, and tell them why. Tell them the lighting and all that jazz is perfect, the music's great, but you're no longer wanting to accept this abysmal shit of poor fights, some awful mismatches, Argentinian brickies, Latvian chippies, was attempting to put on any decent headline fight that should be on a normal Sky Sports show onto pay-per-view. I mean, Friday night fights actually had better fights where the winner wasn't even guaranteed before Al Heyman sunk his claws into it. Then obviously Sky have hived off the Champions League, the EPL was well overrated. The Manchester Derby today, fuck me, man. I mean, Christ, I've seen more passion at a wedding scramble than fucking that game today. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say about this card. I'm going to open up to other guys. Now, I believe Paul is the only one to watch it right through. I hear there was at least one decent fight on the card. As I said, I didn't watch it, apart from the Eubank fight. Paul, you were very vocal last night, mate. Give me your take on what transpired.
I mean, it was, well, it went pretty
central.
Yeah, it went pretty much as expected, really. I mean, without going over the top and just slagging for slagging's sake. I mean, the main event of the night, Chris Eubank, the fight that we all expected to be very one-sided. I mean, I didn't know enough about Tony Jetta to really make a firm indication of what he was going to do. I mean, I sort of predicted that Eubank would stop him mid-rounds, and from the opening bell, Eubank landed a single right hand, and even Hearn tweeted saying that he just looked terrified, Jetta. Eubank took about 4 steps back, admired his work. He could have got him out of there at any point in that opening round. He somehow sort of dragged him into the start of round 2, and then a small barrage of punches, and referee Howard Foster, who, you know what, he gets a lot of criticism, Howard, and he has in the past, but he knows when a fight isn't a real fight, and he knew any excuse he was going to stop it, because Jetta was just not even close to being on the level. He just looked awful. But do you know what? Do you know what he looked like? He looked like a 39-year-old who had never been in a fight of that level in his life, because that's exactly what he was. And what, in terms of, obviously, the criticism which we'll get onto later towards, obviously, Eddie Hearn, but again, you know, this guy was a top 15 ranked guy. So the fight was this is what I'm telling you, right? This I'm not going to go on my big WBA rant this minute, but this is what I'm alluding to, right? So McDonald parody, it was, again, as predictable as anything else, 2 guys who can't punch. You know, Gavin McDonald put his shots together well, deserved the win. Lee Wood, Josh Whale, I mean, it was a breakout fight for Wood, and I'm pretty chuffed for him. That was a fairly decent scrap. And then they had, obviously, the not official main event, but the main event in terms of the ticket sales with Robinson and Shafiq took place after Eubank, and that was a really good scrap. You know, there was no real issue there, a good 8-rounder. But, I mean, what were the options there? They could have pulled that card, and Hearn did something that a lot of promoters wouldn't do. He offered partial refunds, he offered money back, but sometimes there is a case for binning shows. And losing a main event and having an undercard as weak as that is a perfectly legitimate excuse. It would have upset a few fans, but I would have had no issue with him turning around and going, do you know what, we're just going to have to pull this. Instead, he went ahead with it to the point where the Sky commentary, who are always on side, were just trashing the main event, trashing the WBA belt. It was farcical. It was worse than their bad shows where they put on one-sided fights, because it just felt like nothing. I watched it from the start to finish, and I just got so frustrated with it. I just feel like, what am I watching here? It was that bad.
I've got really nothing else to say on it, guys. I mean, fuck me, man. I mean, this guy, Eubank, for all intents and purposes, his dad claims he wants to fight Golovkin. Now, I ain't going to hate on the guy if he wants to fight Gennady Golovkin, you know, more power to him, but does anybody really expect, with his background, think about it, I mean, the best opponent that he's faced, Billy Joe Saunders, he was way wild in that fight. Let's just say there was a lot of skill still required there. This guy is going to go in against a former Olympic medalist and one of the most feared punchers in the boxing world today, and he's going to last with fucking Gennady Golovkin.
I think this is what annoys you about the whole Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, WWE type circus, to be honest. The fact that the Eubanks, you know, English Junior, whatever you want to call them, they're both saying they want Golovkin. Eddie Hearn is on record saying that if they really want Golovkin, he can make the fight tomorrow. And he comes in and says they're going to be fighting Spike O'Sullivan, and then they're going for the full title against Danny Jacobs or Fake Chocolate Peter Quillin. So you kind of ask yourself straight away, well, why not go after the Golovkin fight then? And the thing is, it's them that set themselves up, because they don't have to mention Golovkin. You know, Eubank, as you said, more power to him. If he's calling him out, I'll say that's what all fighters should be doing. I wish other fighters were calling the best fighters out. And I think to be honest, that Junior would take that fight. I don't think his dad would go anywhere near it. His dad didn't want to go in with the best when he was around. He didn't want to go in with the likes of Roy Jones and James Toney, because he knew what would happen. So I don't really see why he'd want his son in with someone like Golovkin. I think it's more sensible to go for Peter Quillin or Danny Jacobs, even though that's a really hard fight for Eubank, in my opinion. But they'll just do what they did with Scott Quigg. They'll go for that title and then just say they can't make the Golovkin fight, or just don't mention Golovkin like they don't mention Rigondeaux.
See that opponent last night, actually, that was probably, you know, equal to everything that Eubank had fought up till the Saunders fight. You know, that's how tragic it was, or how bad it was, sorry. Some people don't like that word tragic getting used too much.
It wasn't even a sparring session.
Yeah, Adam, I'm just going to bring you in there, mate. I mean, you released an article this morning, you know, very detailed, well, it is detailed, straight to the point, very factual. I really just want to move on for this, because, you know, how often can we hate on Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and pay-per-view and these shit fucking shocking cards? You know, we've got to start making a stand. You as fans and listeners have got to start voting with your wallets. Cancel subscriptions. Do it now and fucking tell them why. Because you're going to get another 5 years of this bullshit. 6 years possibly.
Was anyone surprised at Halling's comments at the end when he was...
what did he expect?
He talked about the crowd booing and he said something like, what do they expect? I mean, that's the commentator who should be, bigging up Sky. That's their main event.
Well, Hawling started off...
Go on.
Hawling started off by actually criticising the WBA and the mess that is, but that's a different issue to me. I mean, there's been a couple of turning points this year. Obviously, I was originally, when I first came on here, was a Matchroom lover and thought it was great. But the only improvement we've really seen from this, the new age sort of promoting, as it's been called, is the stuff that we don't care about. We see better production, we see better lighting, better ring entrances, and better music played in between rounds. We don't care about that. That's the only thing that's improved. The matchmaking's getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, we can, it's not going to be perfect every week. If there was only one incident of a bad stoppage, or a terrible opponent, or if there was only a couple of incidents throughout the year. But as I've listed in the article this morning, there's incidents on almost every show that's on Sky Sports. Last night it was, Tony Jeter, who's 39, fought once in 18 months, miraculously got a WBA ranking, and did absolutely nothing last night. And it was basically an infamous matchroom debut for. I'm not going to say an established star, but an established fighter. We've seen, Martin Murray's signed for Matchroom this year. Fought, the first person he fought was terrible on the July show, and he's also fought two other terrible people after that. It's been a terrible year away from the guys that have gone over to America, of which I'm not counting really. You can't really give Eddie much credit for that, and away from the pay-per-view in May, which was a good show, but on pay-per-view. Who has had a positive year, who has had a breakout year, who has established himself this year, which fighter in the Matchroom stable has had a good...
Anthony Joshua!
Exactly.
Yeah, I like the John McDonald impression, that was really good. John McDonald, sorry.
It's and the positive side of it, there is a couple of good shows to look forward to. I'm really looking forward to Rocky Fielding and Callum Smith. I'm really looking forward to that. December the 12th, whether it be on pay-per-view or not, I'm still looking forward to that. I think that would be decent. Yeah, I mean, it could, but it's just happening every single week. We've had some terrible shows in Leeds, Birmingham, Newcastle last night, and I fully agree with Paul. Last night there was more than enough grounds to move that show, or to put, to cancel that show and spread the fights out over a number of different dates. I don't think the undercard for Fielding and Smith is up to much. We could have had Lee Wood and Josh Whale on there, or Eubank could have gone elsewhere. There was definitely an argument for that. And I've wrote that today. And to be fair, there's been a lot of people in agreement. But I was thinking, maybe I do need to think of some positivity. But I just simply can't. I simply can't think of any positivity that has been shown on normal Sky Sports, and it's just getting worse. It really is getting worse.
Well, I suppose that wouldn't be in the Nuthouse if we didn't get Alex Morris' take on this card. Did you even watch any, Alex?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched a little bit. I suppose I got a bit bored, to be honest, of some of the undercard, but I just received some breaking news earlier as well. I thought I'd share it with the podcast. Eddie Hearn's a cunt. I thought that was an absolutely tragic fight last night. I think we've said it before on here. I said it on social media earlier. It would have been pay-per-view if Vlad Klitschko wasn't injured. It had nothing to do with Kell Brook, getting pulled off or injuring his ring hole or anything like that. Because it still would have been pay-per-view because it's been proven that Vlad Fury is a standalone pay-per-view. So we would have had Eubank v Jetta as the lead-in to that, heavyweight.
Drama, mate, not Jetta.
Excuse me, as drama to the unified heavyweight championship of the world fight, absolute farce. And what I thought about drama is that just what a farce of a fighter he is. I looked at him and he just looks like a cartoon. You know what I mean? Like you see the way he moves around the ring. You saw those weigh-in pictures of him. It's like a fucking episode of The Simpsons, and they had to draw the worst boxer you could ever fucking imagine. He just stumbled around the ring and he sort of shuffled backwards and forwards, just like a fucking drunk after the pubs had shut. It was absolutely just tragic fight, and this guy was somehow ranked top 15 with a couple of ranking boards, not just the WBA. I think he was with the WBO as well. So
let me check.
It's not even worth checking. It's a fucking farce. And
McDonald mentioned it, didn't he? But to hype him up, he talked about him. I think he was ranked with 3 of the organisations.
Yeah, none of them top 10. And why he's even in any of them, absolute joke. I mean, Eubank himself, I thought, he tried to do the stupid posing thing that his dad was doing, and he's saying, "Oh, I'm a different man than my dad," but then he copies his dad in so many fucking ways. Like I said, he posed and he poised. He did a lot of that shite in the ring. He took commands at the centre of the ring and watched as fucking drama. He did his little cartoon shuffle around the ring, and whenever he did throw a punch, Jetta didn't know what to fucking do, did he? And thankfully, the whole night was saved by the fucking jittery trigger finger of Howard Foster. I mean, how many times are we thankful for that fucking useless cunt being in the ring?
I'm just wondering, after Jetta's wonderful performance last night, I mean, is he a potential Andre Ward opponent for this Canelo Cotto undercard? I think he's done the world of good.
I'll tell you what, I can see drama just coming down the ring like he did last night with his mouth open trying to catch flies, fuck's sake, it's like trying to catch Mars bar rappers last night. It looked like he was on Ching or some fucking good sweeties or something like that, some ecstasy.
Yeah.
He's fucking chin dropped in there like that.
He definitely been on the Charlie all night, Jetta and G.
On the fucking disco biscuits, definitely. But guys, can we just move on for this? I mean, as I says, I guess we can talk about it all night if you want.
No,
I'm sure Hater Dave can hate a bit.
Oh, sure, Dave can finish off that, but I was going to go to Dave.
From an American perspective, I mean, we don't need to talk about this anymore. I think you should go after the fighters just as much as Eddie Hearn, because it's them who are ultimately not accomplishing anything with their careers and just wasting their time or wasting our time. So, I mean, just call out the Eubanks. I mean, it's their fault as well as Eddie's. So, and
the only slight positive I can give, and I know some do disagree with me on this, I'm quite looking forward to the Spike O'Sullivan fight. I think that's a good fight, a good test. Spike will have a good go. We'll learn quite a lot about Eubank on that night. He might well win. He might well outbox Spike, as happens when Spike steps up, but I'm looking forward to that fight.
That's terrible. Spike is terrible. He's garbage. He's fought nobody except Billy Joe and lost every second.
It's an awful fight. And again, how do the WA even come to the conclusion that that's a final eliminator for anything?
I mean, Spike's ranked 10th or something like that.
No, Spike's ranked number 11, right? Chris Eubank is technically ranked number 1 at the moment because obviously he did hold the interim belt but now doesn't. So the WBA at the minute have just, as of last night, had 4 champions, 2 interim, 1 regular and a super champion. The interim belt was fought between the guy ranked number 10 and the guy ranked number 15. Why is that an interim title fight between 2 guys who aren't even ranked in the top 8 or 9? And now you've got a guy number 11 who's in a final eliminator for the regular belt. Well, why is Spike O'Sullivan in a final eliminator when you like serving Antoine Douglas, Monroe, Wade, Truax, etc., who are all above him, aren't getting a fight? How do they even, we've got to this absolutely maddening situation where Chris Eubank is stood in the ring holding an interim world title, and the promoter comes on and says that Chris Eubank is now going to fight for a final eliminator for a world title. If you're a fan who doesn't know everything about the sport, and there are some people who get a bit annoyed and say that everyone should, but if you were a casual type fan watching that, I'd be sat there going, what the fuck is going on? What am I watching it? Am I watching a world title fight or am I not? Why is he giving up a belt to fight for an eliminator for a world title? And the worst thing is, the fight he's actually going to take, which will be the winner of obviously Danny Jacobs versus Peter Quillen, that's not even a real world title. Even if he wins that fight, it's a good win on his resume, but it's not a world title. There is only one world champion in the WBA that anyone can take seriously, and that's Golovkin. But we've got to this absolutely absurd situation where promoters, and you know what, Eddie Hearn doesn't, I will say this, Eddie Hearn is not the matchmaker. Eddie Hearn may want fights, but I seriously doubt that Eddie Hearn picked Tony Jetta for a start. But he's going on.
Eubanks have got a lot to say in that,
Yeah, and the promoter at Matchroom, I mean, these are the guys that spend hours on Box Rec watching videos.
This shit, though. This is the thing. Sky are fucking allowed these fights to go on.
Well, here's the thing. Last night, I think, was the first time that Sky, not Matchroom, turned against the WBA. We've also seen it this week with Sky Bet saying they will no longer count WBA belts as world titles. because the broadcaster has got to sort of echo its audience, and the audience are saying, this is bullshit, this isn't a real world title. And now we're getting to the point where the only people who are saying it are the promoters. That's it.
Thank God for the audience. That was great how they booed.
Yeah, and fucking Nick Holland says, well, what do you expect? And well, fucking maybe tell him the truth beforehand, before going into the fucking fight. Educate, as Paul says, who, by the way, Paul, I agree with every single word. I mean, yeah, fuck, man. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, you're going to just put up with this shit constantly. The WBA, well, we can come back on. I'm sick and tired talking about the cunts, and I think one of the questions for the Twitter guys were asking is, should we actually be basically disregarding about everything that the WBA does? I think we should be fucking hounding them for everything that they're worth. Emails, phone calls, faxes, fucking homing pigeons or something. Just to get the message across to them that they are a fucking corrupt joke.
And here's the final thing I'll say about the WBA. They currently, as it stands, have 41 world champions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In three.
2013, there was 87. At the end of 2013, there was 87, shall we say, inverted commas, world titles. Right. 34 of them belonged to the WBA.
So they've only gone up since, and there are only now a handful of divisions where they have just 2 champions. They don't have a single division where they have 1, and in the majority of those they have 3. And if you look at the cases of why they haven't, there isn't a single division where you can justify having. I mean, bantamweight, Pacquiao is the interim champ, McDonnell the regular, Pacquiao the undisputed or super champion. Why? They're all active fighters. They could all fight each other. There is no justification at a single weight class. They have 3 heavyweight world champions. They have 3 middleweight world champions. They've got 3 super middleweight world champions. It's beyond ludicrous. And as much as you're the sanctioning body, we talked about this last time, are a joke, the WBA got to the point now where when the betting companies aren't even recognising it, when the broadcasters aren't recognising it, the fans don't put any value in it, the next thing to fall is the promoters. And someone's got to try and get it through to Eddie Hearn that no one gives a toss about the WBA regular or the WBA in general. I'm hoping he's going to start to get that message. And for all that Nick Halling, like I say, gets absolute shit from everybody, he does speak his mind on occasion, and he called it like it was. That title was bullshit. Last night's fight was bullshit. And like Adam says, we've got some good shows on Sky to come up, but fucking hell, they've got a lot of work. They've got 10 months worth of saviour from this year to try and fix. It's been abysmal.
Definitely. Right, leave it there, guys. We're on 20 minutes about this. We've added in some WBA rant there as well. Fuck the WBA as well. Mendoza's also a cunt. Dave, last night, HBO, Terence Crawford back in action. Thierry John knocked out or dealt with in 10 rounds. I'm not going to get out of pram about it. I mean, we did what he expected him to do, outclass the guy. What I was really impressed by is the fact is once he turned southpaw, Jean had no answers for him because I think Bud was getting caught before he did switch stance with his overhand straight right hand, or lead right hand, I should say. Crawford simply made adjustments. The second they turned southpaw, bang, right hook, down went Jean, and it was pretty much all she wrote. He sat in his punches a couple of times as well. Jean's a tough guy, but other than that, we can only give it a pass marks of a B, say.
Yeah, there are a lot of things to like about Crawford, but last night was ultimately a mismatch and
Showcase.
Not super gripping stuff either. I mean, Thierry John is not a bad fighter, and he certainly did better against Lamont Peterson than he did against Terence Crawford, who completely outclassed him and dominated him. But it's really the politics of boxing. Crawford should be having a better opponent, but I mean, the majority of 140-pounders are not with Top Rank, so of course the Cold War is going to keep us from seeing something actually interesting, intriguing. At least we did get a chance to see Crawford deal with another style. In fact, one of the things that I do like about Crawford is we have seen him in there with a lot of different styles. We've seen him in there with pressure work rate guys. We've seen him in there with big punchers, speedy guys, short guys, tall guys, different styles, and he's dealt with them each in different ways. So I think that's a very good sign on his part, because a lot of fighters, they cherry pick styles. Like I think even Floyd Mayweather cherry picked styles in his later years. He would always go for that caveman style. And another thing about Crawford, I noticed that it's actually a criticism. In about round 5, 6, 7, he started to step off the gas. He sort of fell into a rhythm, got a bit lazy, got a bit sloppy. It was almost like he was getting bored because he was so in control of the fight. And then that led to him getting caught a good shot by Jean, and that sort of woke him up, and then he just went into finishing mode. But yeah, I don't want to see Crawford falling into that trap because he's one of the most focused and composed guys in the sport right now. After the first round, you saw him drop Jean at the very end of the round. He just walked back to his corner, sat there like he was bored taking an exam at school or something. It was he's very composed. Doesn't get his emotions get the best of him.
Yeah, it doesn't get flustered. That's what I like about him as well. I mean, I know I wasn't high on him until I seen the Ricky Burns fight. You know, he came here, took him apart, play by play. You know, Burns kept trying to fight him, obviously, but you know, just showed you he was quite confident come all the way across here and take the title like that. But Alex, give me your take on Bud last night. I mean, it was pretty clear. I think that maybe Jean just didn't do enough to actually, you know, command his respect last night. As I say, he was very kind of in and out different stances, but mainly kind of stuck with the southpaw stance. Just really couldn't miss wee straight shots as well, and the right hook was really a good punch as well. But got to be honest, mate, it was a showcase fight. HBO, I don't know if you listened to your commentary last night, but HBO are actually joke now. I mean, the actual comment of Max Kellerman probably deserves to get a Belly of the Week nomination. He says that Terence Crawford, his historical reference for the night was Terence Crawford reminds me of Sonny Liston, by the way, staring across the ring at Thierry Jean. You ever heard so much fucking verbal diarrhea in your life?
He didn't look anything like Sonny Liston. I mean, he wasn't glowering at him or staring him down. He was just calmly observing. I don't think that comparison is at all accurate.
Well, I say it's embarrassing, isn't it? I mean, you'd expect that sort of comment from someone like fucking Spencer Theron or something, and we rip the piss out of him, you know, practically weekly for some of the fucking nonsense he comes out with. And HBO seem to be really ramping up the I don't know what you'd call it, propaganda, nonsense, shite, hype. I mean, I think they're doing it possibly in a response to, you know, the rise of Heyman and PBC and things like that. They're just really going over the top with a lot of their, you know, just last week during the pay-per-view, obviously, you know, the talk of, you know, Gonzalez, the fucking counter that they were doing for the combos, you know, GGG, just, you know, I'm big on all of those guys myself, but, you know, it's just got embarrassing. And the same with Crawford last night. I mean, I was impressed by Crawford. I thought that he was very measured and very strong, but Thierry Jean was very average. I don't think that he had the ability, the IQ, the boxing IQ, to just understand how to beat Crawford. As soon as Crawford switched to that southpaw stance, he just didn't know what to do. He was absolutely clueless. Crawford kept, you know, that lead foot on the outside of Thierry Jean, and that was it. He would just stalk him down, get him against the ropes, and as soon as he cut off the ring, and, you know, it wasn't, you know, serious pressure, it wasn't overwhelming pressure, but Crawford managed to do that. He pushed him back to the ropes, and as soon as he did, he fired off a couple of combos, a couple of straight hands, and Jean looked all over the place. Every single punch seemed to fucking hurt him, and, you know, credit to him, he kept going. He had a couple of chances to probably give up and stay down, but you know, that's his job, isn't it? He's supposed to fight on. He's supposed to try and win. So, you know, what can you really say? I mean, a jump from Thierry Jean to Manny Pacquiao is obviously a huge one, and a jump from any of the fighters that Crawford's fought and beaten is, you know, to Pacquiao is a massive jump. Even a largely faded Pacquiao that we've seen, you know, last against Mayweather. But, you know, what can you really say take from the Mayweather fight and compare it to Crawford? You know, I think that fight is probably the most logical one to make. I think if Bob wants to, you know, pass the torch, then Crawford is the guy. Because while I don't agree with the Sonny Liston comparison, I do think that Crawford's got that personality shining through, and he's becoming a bit of a mean bastard, and we like that about Kovalev, and I think that Crawford could certainly show that as well.
See if Pacquiao has actually got one decent fight left in him. I would actually pick him to beat Crawford on points, because I think, as Curtis said, he struggled with the hand speed of Gamboa for 4 rounds now. If Gamboa had been a 35-pound fighter, that could have been a totally different outcome in that fight. Let's be honest about it. And if Pacquiao was struggle a wee bit of the speed, and he's wanting to let his hands go, I don't know. I think it's no cut in stone.
Go on, Adam. What are you saying?
Yeah, well, On the Pacquiao thing, I think Pacquiao's completely lost the X factor. He's going to be, another year older come April the 9th or whenever the date is. I think it's a handover fight for top rank from one star to another. And especially if it's at 140, I won't be comfortable with Crawford moving up again to 147 so soon. But if it is at 140, as has been mentioned, I can't see Pacquiao winning that fight, to be fair. But from last night, I'm starting to become a real big fan of Crawford. He's one of the more technical boxers, probably the most technical boxer that I enjoy the most, if that makes sense. I normally like the bangers like Golovkin, but we didn't. Deary John's not up to that much, but at least I pulled comparisons to last week's fight with Golovkin and Lemieux, because at least John was in there last night and he looked to have a game plan, even if it was a simple one, land the counter right hand. Lemieux didn't look like he had a game plan from the first bell last week, and Deary John did last night, and he did land a couple on Crawford in the 5th and 6th, and he looked uncomfortable. But that switching is the best switch hitter I've seen for some time. And I think that he's really calm, as has already been mentioned. When he goes to, I think he's more a controlled fighter as a southpaw and lands more power punches as an orthodox, or looks more dangerous as an orthodox. And I thought, he got the stoppage, could have coasted for a couple of rounds, got the stoppage, building up a real, fanfare in Omaha. I think he's a star waiting to happen. Obviously, we need to see him in better fights and better fighters than Deary John. But from an American perspective, if anyone on there, why is it just simply the divide and the lack of opponents at top rank? Because I thought it was a poor matchup, to be fair, on paper. Is it what reason was Deary John in there for?
The thing that it's a bit annoying. I think he had a great year, and then this year, who's he fought? Delorme and now Deary John. I mean, it seems such a setback for Crawford, who was riding high. I mean, he sells a lot of tickets in Omaha. He's as Adam said, he's a technical boxer, but like Adam said as well, he's exciting as well because he does go for the knockout. He does look to land the big punch. He's not just like a defensive guy. Some people like to compare him to like a Pernell Whitaker, but he's more offensive, and he's the type of boxer, if you see him like last night, for instance, as soon as he gets caught with a big shot, his instinct is to go straight in and try and land, and hurt the other guy back, and that's what makes it more exciting. And the fans, you could hear them, they were really excited for the fight. But in terms of beating Pacquiao, to me, I don't see him becoming that star by beating Pacquiao, to be honest. I mean, people like to think, it's passing of the torch, but Shane Mosley beat Oscar De La Hoya, never really got that star power. Pacquiao got it because he was fighting the likes of Morales and Barrera and Marquez, and then when he stepped in with his massive fight against De La Hoya, he absolutely obliterated him. So if Crawford beats Pacquiao, it's going to be a technical type fight, and I just don't think he's going to have that star thing. I think it's better if he stays in Omaha and builds up there, because in America, it's very rare to see African Americans selling out arenas, as sad as it is. You see the likes of Tim Bradley and Paul Williams, who are really exciting fighters. They put it all on the line, but they just don't sell out, and they get farmed out here, there, and everywhere, and they just don't sell tickets. And it's good to see a guy like Crawford selling out his hometown. And I think if they stick him in Vegas, obviously you'll want the big fight, but they stick him in Vegas, I just don't see him being ready for it yet, and I don't see him really having that star potential, as sad as that is. I mean, he's a quiet guy outside the ring. If you look at the types of the likes of Mayweather and Broner, guys like that, they bring other things into the equation. It's not just their fights, it's their attitudes outside the ring. And Crawford, a bit like Andre Ward, seems pretty quiet. You don't really hear much of him, so I think it's going to be tough for him. But in terms of like in ring, just like Tim Bradley, I mean, these guys deserve to be in the spotlight.
Certainly Tim Bradley does anyway. But just to answer your question, Adam, I mean, 140 is kind of light. Figueroa, I think he's kind of flitting up between 140 and 147. You got Matisse fight potentially we get made. Herrera, I think, maybe Provodnikov. Who knows? But as you say, maybe even Jose Benavidez for some sort of unification.
I think Crawford's improved in front of the camera as well. I remember when he came at IFL tried interview, it was a bloody nightmare. But I mean, last night I know they mentioned some trash talk from the Jean team in the build-up, and he answered that in the ring and in the interview after. So I think he's improved in that sense, and he's really enjoying the hometown support.
Just I was looking through the 140 ratings. Actually, I just noticed Ricky Burns has just been ranked 13 with IBF. How is that possible? I know he's fighting for a WBO trinket.
Obviously, Mr. Hearn, having a few brown envelopes again.
It's possible.
Someone in the chat just said about comparing Crawford to the support Crawford gets in Omaha to the support Pavlik got. That sort of local big support that he had, and they were trying to make him a star. Obviously, before he, got schooled off of Hopkins. Hopefully Crawford doesn't go the same way. I thought it was quite a good comparison.
Dave, Andy Ruiz Jr. still looks like a fat bastard, mate. He went distance with Rafael Zambano Love. I heard Yevgeny Granovich looked pretty poor, 8-round split decision victory as well, mate. Did you see any of these fights, anything worth writing home about?
I saw Andy Ruiz, though I wouldn't really say it's anything to write home about, other than the poor guy he was fighting really showed a lot of heart. I have trouble taking Andy Ruiz seriously at this point because he's still fat. He's still got that sort of dopey farm boy face. I don't know. I wish the best for him because he's an American heavyweight who looks to have some potential, and he's got an exciting style. He's got a decent gas tank for his gut, but I don't know. I don't know why his power. I don't know. Did just some of his power leave him with some of the pounds he lost? I don't know, because he's been going the distance the past 3 fights, I think, and that's different from when he was first starting to get people interested. He would get a couple 1, 2, 3 rounders, and that was exciting. But I don't know. He's still fun to watch in that he's a very come forward guy, throws a lot of punches, and goes for the kill. So I guess he's watchable, but I don't see any big things in his future at the moment.
Alright, well that being the case, as you know, on the Twitter questions, there's quite a lot of Twitter questions you can imagine, and it's all dominated by one person, so I'll try and kind of skim through as many as possible, try and get the lads to give as kind of brief answers as possible as well. Paul, it's Boxing Babies asking, which card will be better, December 12th or December 19th?
Define better. In terms of the quality of 3 genuine world titles, on display, you're going to have to say obviously December the 19th. I also think that what will be on the card ahead of the top 3, or sort of saying behind the top 3, will be decent, because that's what they delivered on the World War III card. So I think the undercard itself will be stronger. 3 world title fights, probably the most, for me, one of the most interesting matchups this year, with Billy Joe Saunders and Andy Lee. And then obviously Liam Smith, we don't know what he's going to be in with. Flanagan versus Derry is looking more and more every day. So that could be a potentially excellent card. December the 12th, the main event, completely one-sided. Eubank Sullivan, completely one-sided. And then it's just going to be a case of what they put in with Campbell. It's looking like, obviously, is it Tony Louise, the guy who Derry fought? I think that's going to be the one for him. And then whatever they throw Bellew in for. So I think it's fairly straightforward. The 19th will be better. The 12th will be bigger. It will sell more tickets, and it will be a much, much bigger event, which is a shame. But that's Sky and Box Nation for you.
Next question. Kurt's maybe having some sound issues just now, so we'll leave him out of this just now until he gets it fixed out. Adam McKetch is asking, is Eubank Jr. very good at playing the promotional game, or is he actually an utter madman?
He is an utter madman. I think he's lived in a bit of a cocoon almost for much of his adult life. He thinks that he's clever and that he's, that the way he does things is the right way. He obviously doesn't care much about opinions. He cares very much about swearing and bad language. And he's just going to carry on. Nothing will change the way he goes about what he does, to be honest, until he falls out with his son, but I can't see that happening either anytime soon. Hopefully Adam Booth can be a calming influence in the many factions that form the career of Chris Eubank Jr.
Alex Callum Bell asks, if being ranked 11 gets you in a final eliminator, then what is stopping the promoters making shitfests? The organisation need to stop authorising such ridiculous things before they ruin boxing.
Nothing's stopping them, clearly. We're seeing it all over the place. I'm not one to defend Matchroom, but, we see it with Frank Warren, we see it with... Well, we don't really see it in America. They don't really do the final eliminator thing as much as we do over here and try and sell fights, using that sort of title, but, promoters do it all the time. They fudge the rankings. They get their international, intercontinental belts for a cheeky top 10, top 15 ranking, and then all of a sudden they're in an eliminator. I mean, look at fucking Campbell versus Coyle. That was an eliminator between ranked 14 and 15. It's a fucking joke, and never going to stop.
Looks like the call seems to be okay. I think Curtis has dropped off the group chat, so I'm assuming everything's fine.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but looks like there's no complaints in the YouTube chat about the sound going down or anything like that, so I think we're all good to go still. Paul, Adam Tinsley's asking, Hearn has offered apparently John Ryder versus Brian Rose at 160. I think Brian Rose has got a fight coming up soon, so who wins this one?
It's a good. I mean, I think to be fair, Brian Rose is probably entitled to a decent fight. I think at 160, I think obviously Ryder, his career hasn't exactly gone to plan. I thought he had a close loss, obviously with Billy Joe, but he seems to be a bit the forgotten man with Matchroom at the moment, and he doesn't really impress when he gets his chance on TV. So you'd have to probably favour him at the weight. I think he's a natural middleweight, whereas Brian Rose isn't. So I'd probably lean towards Ryder, but I don't think it's a fight that we'll see.
Right. Dave, this comes from Andrew Lee Evans. What will Eubank Jr.'s game plan be for Golovkin? Go for a 120-108 schooling or total demolition, a.k.a. Johnny Drama style?
He'll get in there, and they're going to have a plan, I'm sure. And immediately that's going to go out the window. I don't think Eubank Jr. is disciplined enough to stick to it at all. And I think he's going to either start slugging or start running. I don't know if he's got enough dog in him to stay in there once Golovkin catches him a couple times. But one way or another, he's done. So I want to see that fight just to shut the Eubanks up. I want that next. I'd rather see that than Tureano Johnson, because I like Tureano Johnson. Tureano Johnson can't hang with Golovkin, but I'd rather, if someone's going to get beat up, I'd love to have it be Eubank Jr.
Can I just make a comment on that Tureano Johnson? I didn't get. I thought Eamon O'Kane was hurting him, at times. I think it might have been through Johnson tiring, but I certainly wasn't sold on Johnson going forward for a Golovkin fight. Golovkin would smash him to pieces in minutes.
Can you actually imagine if Junior's actually got his old man's genes of toughness in his chin, and he could take what Golovkin's got? I don't know.
Then it would be a nice, long, brutal night.
His dad was Iron Man. I mean, pure fucking nails. And if he's got that, then it's going to last him well. He'll fucking need it for Golovkin. That much is true. We also got in the call here still. Alex, Barry Evans is asking, is Amir Khan going to be pipped to the post for a Pacquiao fight by Crawford via an unwillingness to stay active or hold the world title?
I don't think it'll be because of that. I just think, again, it'll be because he's been gobbing off, and I don't think that they can, maybe he's being a bit difficult in negotiations and things like that. He seems to be very vocal about what he wants and how he thinks he wants things to go down, and thinks that he's the boss in all these talks. And I think that sort of nonsense cost him the Mayweather fight, and it's probably going to cost him the Pacquiao fight. And I think politics plays a little bit into it as well, because, like I said, I Kurt mentioned that maybe Crawford won't become a star after the Pacquiao fight, but I do think that that is Aram's best option of cashing Pacquiao out, really, just to try and give Crawford that little boost. So it makes sense for him to make the Crawford fight. He doesn't really gain anything from giving Khan that fight, apart from a few extra bob.
Mohammed El Kibar is asking, Paul, why do fans dick ride Mr. Eddie Hearn? You could shit in a cup on live TV and sell it as pay-per-view, and still people would watch.
Because he's not as bad as a lot of people think. I genuinely think he sets out with the intention to make good fights and good shows. I think when he first started a few years ago, he certainly was a bit fresher to it than now. I think he's obviously been worn down by things that are out of his control in a lot of the cases. You can blame him for a lot of things, but the constant injuries, the general bullshit around titles and the way that the sport itself is aligned, the fact that he's losing all his best guys to America and there's nothing he can do about it. You know, all of these things weigh in, and I think that fans like him because he's a face, he answers questions, you message him a general rule, he'll give you an answer.
I'll go to you with this one, Adam, seeing how you were the last person in America, obviously, and Dave's not been at any recent shows in America, but who are hotter, Latino Corona girls or top rank girls?
I've only had direct experience with one of the said girls, but I do very much appreciate the top rank girls. So I'll go with that one. But evidence for the listeners can be seen if I can find my bloody camera there. Look how happy I look.
Right.
Was that a WBA belt he was posing with there?
No, yeah. That's a Corona Extra belt.
Fucking hell, it's like fish water.
It was quite heavy as well.
It's like a Brooklyn belt.
I wouldn't even use it to gargle my fucking breath.
Hey, do you like my phone case as well, fellas? $5.
That'll be TMT, I tell you that much.
GGG, baby.
Probably fucking knockoff shite that you bought from some like.
Right, next question. We need to try and salvage this show somehow, fuck's sake, man. Stevie Reid, Kurt, seeing as you're still there, what would it take to get Holland sacked? He ruins my interest, and I haven't listened to them talk about boxing.
God knows, really. I mean, they must see the complaints that people have. I mean, on social media, if they pay any attention, I mean, people just constantly, even people who are Matchroom fans, I don't really see any positive tweets about any calling. I mean, Jim Watt's been getting it for a while now, but at least Jim Watt knows the sport hauling. You know, he's more of an NFL guy, and he's been brought in, and you know, he does what Sky required, to be honest. But the fans, they just all complain about him. So I'm not really sure what will happen to get him kicked off. I mean, to Sky, he might be doing a fantastic job.
Dave, why do the Eubanks keep going on about Triple G and they have beat Spike? Sorry, I'll just say this again. Why do the Eubanks keep going on about Spike and then they beat... fucking hell! Why do the Eubanks keep going on about Golovkin and then they beat Spike and will be mandatory for Quill and Jacobs, knowing full well they will never go anywhere near Triple G? Like, fuck.
Do we really have to talk about them again? I mean, it's obvious why they're doing it. They're just...
I can't help it, mate. I mean,
it's talk about those assholes when they do something relevant. I mean, even beating Spike O'Sullivan is not going to be worth talking about either. So until they're fighting it, some decent guys, I mean, they can fuck off.
So really, I should just be sacking off these Eubank questions, because there's quite a few of them here. I mean, the one that goes on here about how do you think Eubank would do against Quill and Jacobs? Is it detrimental to either Lee or Eubank Jr. to be trained by the same guy? What else we got? Why didn't anyone brief Holling on the upcoming Hearn announcement before he inferred how shit the WBA is at the beginning of the fight? Very true point.
What was the Hearn announcement?
I don't know, mate. I never watched it. What was his announcement, guys? Paul?
That was it was basically it was an announcement that Eubank O'Sullivan will be a final eliminator for the regular belt. That was the announcement they made.
Damien McKinley asks, what was the most ludicrous matchup, Joshua Cornish or Plank against Johnny Drama? Fucking toss up, mate. I probably need to say Plank against Johnny Drama. What else we got?
This is showing, though, that Eubank, again, you can completely understand why Matchroom wanted him. There's a huge amount of interest in him. You know, the amount of questions that we're getting on just this one topic off the base of that crappy fight. He's if he keeps winning, you know, he could be absolutely huge.
Right, I've got some questions here, not relating to the usual pricks, but I'll go back to Dave with this one. Dave, is it time? This is one of the questions sent in when we were discussing WBA earlier on there. Is it time the WBA was not considered a world title due to the stream of nonsense they're creating? And that's from Mickey D.
That's one for Steve Wellings, really.
I mean, we've discussed it already. Actually, earlier on this show, we're gonna just disregard the WBA. Is that right? I mean,
yeah.
Should have been. I mean, most of the organizations deserve to be disregarded. Most of the champions are paper champions in this sport. So ultimately, who cares? WBA can go down the drain as far as I'm concerned.
Kurt, Jack Captain, who else was disappointed at the level of banter in yesterday's Sheffield card? Could AJ versus Freddie Flintoff save the card? Or should it have saved the card?
Freddie Flintoff, they wouldn't put him in with Anthony Joshua. He's too dangerous. No blueprint, undefeated. I mean, Flintoff against Audley Harrison, that could save the card, but not Joshua.
Adam. So I'm just trying to kind of look through all these questions here, just trying to pick one out that's not Eubank related. But Ruben Hemmings, who would you guys say is the most badly managed advised boxer in the sport, and who's the best? I'm going to say the first one's probably Amir Khan.
Yeah. Let's get some corn hate going.
Or Rigondeaux, to be fair. I think Rigondeaux is another badly
That's another one.
advised.
Very true.
Because, with Khan, I mean, yeah, he's got to be up there because, he's signed with Heyman to get the Mayweather fight. He hasn't got it, and he's wasted some of his career, by hanging around. And obviously, it doesn't help with him shooting his mouth off. Someone needs to really be around him, and I've said before, someone needs to take the phone off him and control his Twitter and stuff because he just, puts his foot in it. Rigondeaux's got all the talent in the world, one of the most talented boxers of our times, I'd say, but he probably won't get the chance to prove it in the fights he should have because of Karibe, Gary Hyde, all the shenanigans going on between them and being badly advised and saying that, I think with someone like Rigondeaux, I think Bryn Jonathan Butler said it perfect. He doesn't believe he should have to, lower himself and take short money because of his talent. And I think sometimes, as bad as it seems, you got to do it. And Andre Ward is along the lines. He thinks because of his accomplishments in the ring, he should demand certain things. But sometimes when you're just not a star, if you're just not a star, and you just got to go with it and take short money sometimes, or fight somewhere you don't want to fight just to get yourself some money and stuff.
Just trying to think of well managed.
I'm just going to say, I'm just reading Rigondeaux's book just now from Bryn Jonathan Butler. He fought Jose Angel Baranes in Mexico. Now, Gary Hyde was actually mentioned in this book as well about his actual fight. Freddie Roach was his trainer at the time, and Freddie says to him he wasn't prepared, wasn't ready, so he wasn't going to be in the corner. Gary Hyde says if the trainer's saying that, then the fight's not going ahead. And whoever was working in the background with Rigo, whoever had his ear, basically says he had to fight. So you can just imagine what's going on in the background. They're obviously wanting their money. Sorry, Adam.
Just trying to think of well-managed boxers.
Joshua?
Yeah, Joshua, definitely Joshua. So far, I was thinking. I know it's extremely obvious, but Mayweather was awesomely managed and advised throughout his career.
But he's not boxing anymore.
Well, yeah, I know, he's not boxing.
I think Steve Wood's done a phenomenal job with Josh Warrington. I think you have to say what he's managed to push with him. So we're thinking managers rather than promoters. That's being well managed by somebody.
Well, I suppose if you look at some of Frank Warren's world champions over the years and stuff, he's had them well managed, well promoted.
I think some of the Heyman ones are obvious ones. I mean, Leo Santa Cruz, he's been managed brilliantly by Heyman and stuff. Some of the pay, purses he's picked up for some of the crap competition. I mean, he's one fight you can say has had a great job in being with Heyman.
On that subject, I think that for the guys like Rigondeaux and Ward, who obviously have all the talent in the world, but aren't getting the money for it, they see guys like, well, maybe not Leo Santa Cruz because he's quite talented, but maybe Broner, I think people like that, and they see him getting these fucking massive paydays for doing fuck all at the time and being shite, well, compared to them especially, they feel a bit bitter, and they, Heyman's really just upset the balance of things. You don't get paid to be a star, you don't get paid big money for how many tickets you sell. You don't get paid big money for how good of a talent you are these days. You just get big money, and I think that really just pisses off the egos of people like Ward and Rigo and things like that.
I think that's definitely true for Ward. I mean, he obviously works with HBO as well, commentating, and he sees, the hype that Golovkin, warranted or not, he's getting. He sees him selling that crowd. And for some, put yourself in Ward's shoes. This is a guy who's beat the best guys. He's beat everyone, mostly with ease. But because of his style, he gets a lot of hate from his own country, to be honest. And he sees this guy foreigner brought in, and now he's selling out Madison Square Garden, selling out the Forum in California. Sees him getting so much hype, and it must make the guy bitter whether you like him or not. And from his point of view, he same as Rigondeaux, he doesn't want to bow down to someone like Golovkin. He thinks, I'm the one who's worked and got the wins. You haven't yet, so. And that's the problem with some of these fights that don't get made, and it's the same with Canelo and Cotto. When they, the winner of that fight will, if they do fight Golovkin, I don't think Cotto would, but if Canelo wants to fight Golovkin, he's gonna pull all the Cotto divaness out he did with Sergio Martinez. He's gonna make Golovkin jump through hoops because when you're in control, you got the power to do it.
Brian King's asked this question, Paul, with Gonzalez now partnering up with Golovkin on his undercards, who in the past were the best card partnerships? I was looking through some of this. I didn't get a chance to fully research it, mate, but, Larry Holmes, Cesar Chavez, you call him James Douglas, I've seen them, maybe G-Man have been on a few of these cards and stuff.
I think with the problem is it's not often that you get, partnerships, because most pay-per-view, when you have a very good chief of support on a pay-per-view, they're there basically to justify their own pay-per-view later down the line. So when Canelo was fighting on Floyd's undercards, that was purely there to put Canelo in a position to fight and headline his own. So I suppose there's probably been a few in history, but there aren't many that you sort of spring to mind, because if you have a good enough chief of support, they want to do their own thing anyway.
I think Mike Tyson and Chavez, they hooked up a couple of times, didn't they, before Mike went to prison. Don King, some of his cards were great. Chavez and Gerald McClellan. As you said, Larry Holmes was on about 4 of Muhammad Ali undercards, so I think those are pretty good partnerships, but it's one of those questions you have to do a bit of research, you probably come up with quite a few good ones.
Yeah. Neil Ferguson asks, how many drugs cheats can be found in Whitney Houston's One Moment in Time Seoul 1988 official video? Right, let me put it this way. Probably the whole shebang were juiced up to the tits. I know for a fact that 100 metres that Ben Johnson won, I think it was Ben Johnson anyway, I think they claimed that was the 30th race in athletics history, and I think there was 7, 8 runners, and all of them at least one of either on that day or since that day have all been caught for using PEDs or been caught in distribution of it.
Well, that's because the 80s and the early 90s were the biggest. As much as the science has improved now, that was the biggest free for all sport, and it's that was the worst period when all the drugs became available, but the testing still wasn't adequate. So a lot of people in the 88 Olympics and 92 in Barcelona must have been absolutely riddled.
Yeah, away.
Let's not forget that Whitney Houston herself could probably do a 100-metre line.
Aye, a 100-metre line in about 2 seconds. She would smash Usain Bolt's record anyway, you know that much. Well, Alex, Junior's asking for the pod, will Kell Brook follow David Haye and be the next boxer to auction his ring online?
I think Kel's quite a popular boy, and I don't think he needs to sell his product. He just flaunts it about and gives it.
He normally does the buying.
Well, exactly. I mean, why would he pay when he can just get it for free?
I seen Michelle Joy Phelps had her hand on his shoulder the other day. There, Kel was looking at her to say, "How you doing?" Yeah. Anyways, Oliver Smith.
She's definitely got a bucket. She has.
Aye.
God.
Our teacher's trying to find one for Dave here. Dave Nunez is asking, how many more pints of his own blood must Gradovich shed before he just calls it a day?
I didn't see that fight, so I mean, was it bloody by all accounts?
I don't know, mate. I never seen
He was terrible. He was absolutely. I watched the fight on the Top Rank stream. He was awful last night.
He was looking in a competitive fight with that guy. I used to think Gradovich was quite good, but maybe he's really on the downside now.
Well, that Santos Silva had been stopped like 8 or 9 times. He wasn't meant to give him anything of a fight, and it was he really, really struggled. And if it was longer, he might have been in more trouble. But he just about squeezed a split decision.
Yeah. And I mean, it's up to him. If he comes back and gets some big wins, we can talk about him again. But right now, it's all down to him and what he does. He's not relevant at the moment.
Not relevant at the minute. Alex, thoughts on Tony Sims' comments about Burns and Mitchell beating Derry and Terry? I like that. Also agrees with Sky lightweight rankings because Mitchell and Burns have been in with higher caliber opponents despite Mitchell losing every world title fight.
Well,
No.
yeah, no. I would probably say they beat Derry. I mean, I don't rank Derry that highly. I don't think many people do rank Derry that highly, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, shit, but, you know, Flanagan, Terry Flanagan. Yeah, I rate him as the best in the country. You know, I think Luke Campbell will probably surpass him one day. And, you know, I'm a big Burns fan, but I don't think that Burns beats Flanagan at the moment. Keep thinking Crawford, same name. Yeah, and the rankings, we know Sky rankings are a joke, and we know that Tony Sims knows which side his bread's buttered. We know how much Hearn's up his arse, and he's up Hearn's arse, so make of that what you will.
Well, on that basis, let's rank Paul Smith as the second best super middleweight in the world because he's been in with Andre Ward. Oh well, those are the wrong weight, but you know what I mean. It's just because they've been in there and they've lost. We've had this argument before. And just another point on Tony Sims. Following Anthony Joshua on Snapchat, and I quite enjoy watching it actually because you get to see the training methods and that. I hardly ever see him training at Tony Sims. He's gone for some hot weather training today. He's training. I just wonder how much involvement Tony Sims has with Anthony Joshua.
Aisha has asked a question who's been a fair bit of criticism recently, but she's asked the question: if Eddie does eventually pull off Frampton versus Quigg, will he be forgiven for all the trash he's put on this year?
No.
Probably, maybe not. But I tell you, one person who's not going to be happy is that guy who I offered. Basically, if he makes his fight within 6 months, he can take me in his mouth and all of it. I don't think he's going to be too. I don't think he's going to be too happy if his fight is made within 6 months.
I'll tell you,
about his wife.
I don't really care too much about Quigg Frampton because at the moment they're both paper champions. And I still don't think Quigg is necessarily that good, but I mean we'll see. So I mean it's a good fight to determine who the European runner-up's going to be at that weight, but we'll see. I would like to see the fight ultimately, but it's not a huge deal to me. I still think that Eddie should be forgiven because I think he gets a bit of a bad rap. I mean I know Matchroom has put on a lot of crap, but Eddie is really the face of the company, and I know he makes a lot of decisions too. And works very hard at promoting his fighters, but it's not all down to him. Like the crap that gets put on. Paul was talking about this earlier. I think Eddie deserves a little bit of slack sometimes. He came on our podcast. He called us. He stayed with us for like over an hour, and he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to call us back after we lost connection. He tries his best to explain himself, even to the hardcores, when he knows his money comes from the casuals. So I'm gonna give Eddie a pass, even though this year was woeful.
Fucking hell, man!
No, fuck that, he's a cunt.
Eddie, if you're listening, mate, I can see the new your Davis Skinny, all that praise there, and you're thinking just. Deep breath.
Well, you see, this is from an American perspective. So you see, I think Eddie's. I like what Eddie does overseas, and I like what he did with Carl Froch. So,
what did he do with Carl Froch?
Cobra.
What did he do with Carl Froch?
What he did, he turned him into a little pussy who stayed in the UK and was scared to fight proper challenges.
Shut up, Alex, man.
Look what he did with the Butte fight at home, beautiful. The two Groves matches. Huge money, huge attention to boxing, and both decent fights. So, I think he did right by Froch, and he's doing right overseas with most of his guys. What he's doing with Brook, I mean, I don't care. So, I mean, if he wants to make Brook fight bums and look like a complete joke, I'm happy with that because I don't like Brook anyway.
I think in terms of the original question, in my opinion, no, because that's what he should be doing. He should be making the best fights going, and he's a guy who says he can make all these fights but doesn't.
But can you blame him for this fight falling through? I mean, he made that career high offer to Frampton, and Frampton turned it down thanks to McGuigan's influence.
It was shit.
Yeah, but wait a minute. He's going on about how much this money was going to make pay-per-view. What was it he said? A £10 million fight. So if it's a £10 million fight, why the fuck should Frampton accept £1.5 million when he's in the A-side?
Yeah, but
it's not £10 million.
Yeah, but Dave, look at it from the American standpoint. Al Heyman was involved in the biggest fight of all time. Does that mean let's forgive Al Heyman for all his matchup? And if Al Heyman decides to let Stevenson fight Kovalev, great fight, one of the best, if not the best fight in boxing, no one's going to say, oh well, Al Heyman's forgiven now, we love him now.
No,
So one should hurt just for making a.
You're comparing two
fight.
different things, though. I mean, I don't think Eddie Hearn is exactly on Al Heyman's level in terms of the crap he puts out there, and I mean, he doesn't have the stable that Al Heyman has.
So a couple more questions before we move on to Belly of the Week. Because of these Eubank questions, I'm having to take my time and scan right through them all so I can try and pick out ones. Jake's asking, was Frank Warren shot for less than Eubank against Drama? Probably. I like this one. Paul, you'll love this question, mate. See if you can dissect it for us and break it down. How Thomas Cummins is asking, how can an eliminator exist involving a previous title holder of interim belt? By rights, the holder should be number one contender, yes?
Well,
here we go.
Sort of.
Sit back and open a can of beer.
Right, so it's not quite as straightforward as that. So the WBA obviously have their three main champions, super, regular, and interim. Now, in most bodies, WBC and the WBO, the interim champion is designed to be in position to fight the main champion. With the WBA, it's slightly different. The super champion doesn't have a mandatory of any sort. There is no actual precedent so that the super champion has to fight either the regular or the interim. Even if the regular and interim fight each other, somebody wins that. The super champion does not have to face them. Technically, a super champion, as Floyd Mayweather has proved, can really go as long as they want and never ever face anyone in the WBA's top 15, and that's not an issue. So the reason why it's very silly is, to me, if you already hold the interim belt, that you've got enough to qualify you to fight for the regular title. The only reason why they're making the Sullivan fight a final eliminator is because A, that's the fight they want to make regardless, and it gives it some level of prestige. There's no real need for it to be a final eliminator, because if Eubank wins, he should be able to walk into the winner of Quillen Jacobs anyway. It doesn't help him in terms of a purse split, because that's going to be an interesting one how they work that out. It's purely to sell the show. But he is right, the winning a final eliminator does not get you a shot at a super champ, and being an interim champion also does not get you a shot at the super champion.
I've got a late question coming in from John Nugent. He's asked, quick question, would Quigg get more credit for beating Leo Santos Snooze or losing at 116-112 to Rigo?
Cracking question, that.
Leo Santos Snooze? I mean, Leo Santos Snooze has fought better guys than Quigg, sorry.
Yeah, but what does he get? Does he get credit for beating Cruz, or does he get credit for losing, say, a semi-competitive decision? Rigo.
I think he's got to get credit for beating Santa Snooze. I mean, but he's still undefeated, isn't he, Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
I mean, so we saw Rigondeaux have a bit of trouble. I mean, the Japanese fella, I know he wasn't 116-12, but he put him down a couple of times, made it tough for him. But I think for Quigg, for like his career, he's got to take the win over. Whatever you say about him, Cruz is still a top talent in around those weights. So I think he'd have to take that. I mean, but if he took, I mean, any of them, if him and Frampton, if they took the Rigondeaux fight, I'd give him credit for that. Even if they get, unlikely, but even if they got sparked out in one round, I'd still give him credit because they've took it on. But that's the type of how low our standards have fallen now, where we give credit to a champion for going in with another champion. But that's the way it is. These guys, as good as that fight is, ultimately it's a fight between two guys to see who the second best guy in the division is, and the winner won't go anywhere near the best guy in the division. That's what annoys me.
And I bet we won't be giving credit to either guy for doing either of those things, because they're not going to do it.
Yeah. Sam Karp asks, as Watt and Holland seem to be so good at blatantly lying, when will they be making their debuts in politics? When's the referendum? Next year? Yeah, I think it is.
No, it's 2017.
There'll be a few by-elections at some fucking point before the elections anyway. So, final question. Michael Teague asks Alex, what, if anything, do you guys think Matchroom can do to put right their Anus Horribilis 2015? Obviously trying to get a wee bit kind of Latin-esque there.
translation.
And it's
I thought you were trying to say heinous and then anus. I was getting very confused then.
Yeah.
Well, he did include a Kell Brook joke in that as well. I thought that
Yeah, you see, he's not Kell's latest injury.
I'm just trying to think what the question was again. Yeah, I mean, nothing much really for us. I mean, he's obviously going to have this big pay-per-view at the end of the year, the 2015 one. And, linking it to the Frampton Quid question we got from Aisha, will we be forgiving Hearn? I think that the casuals especially, are going to be forgiving Hearn probably far sooner than either of those events. They'll probably forgive him as soon as after Fielding Smith. I think they'll be, oh, Eddie, you pulled off a fucking blinder again. Well done, Eddie. Great show as always. And then he'll get to December 12th. AJ will be on there. It'll look fantastic.
Pay-per-view, baby! Pay-per-view!
Yeah, he'll have AJ on there. Look fantastic. People are already buying into the Spike Eubank fight, saying that it's more than an utter mismatch. And that's what it is, mismatch. We don't even know the opponents for some of the guys on the undercard. Bellew, Mitchell, Campbell, TBA still. How many weeks out are we? 6 weeks now? 5 weeks maybe?
Yeah.
Closer it gets, the shiter the opposition's going to be. And people are going to be saying he pulled out a blinder for that one, unless, the fucking arena collapses in on itself. But even then, I think they'll be praising him. So he's got to hope that no one pulls out injured from the remaining cards that he's got. Obviously, he's got Perez. Crawler winning that. I thought he won the first fight, and if he wins the rematch, that'll set a few things straight for him, I think, and probably give him the boost that he needs after the constant 3 years, 4, 5, 6, 7 year and a half, 2 years, 3 years of shite that he's given us. So,
So, thanks to the listeners for the Twitter questions. It's a wee bit kind of poor. None of these callers have phoned in. I thought we might have got a few Eddie Hearn backers and Matchroom supporters and stuff, but nah. There are seems to go every time this podcast comes on air, and I'm going to call in tomorrow and stuff like that. Last night would have been a good time to get them all on the line. Maybe I should have let Paul have his way and stuff, but considering how most of us were feeling last night, I think last night could have been really comedy gold, but then it's probably wise that we didn't go, because I've done this shit before, pissed, and believe me, sometimes you kind of regret listening back to your show absolutely blazed out your tree, so. Anyway, Belly of the Week.
Okay, what's the Belly? Beat me up, and that's all I've got to say about that. Let's do it right now. We can do it right now, you fucking rat. Okay, what's the Belly of the Week?
No, guys, I've not got anything this week. I haven't noted anything and stuff, so I'm really kind of looking towards you guys for assistance here. So, I think I've got one in here from Scott Heighton that actually sent me this in. It's regards to a Facebook page. Michael Knight is basically, they must be talking about some sort of opponent for for Amir Khan. Michael Knight states, would love to fight Khan just so we don't have to listen to Khan making out he's the best thing since sliced bread and saying everybody ducked him. Then Peter King's then responded and says, AJ, as people keep going on this, he ain't fighting anyone good, ha ha. Okay, over that, man. Didn't make sense to me anyway, but that was the only one I've got. But this one really pains me, actually. One of my most favourite fighters of all time, Nigel Benn, said how Ali would get slaughtered by today's heavyweights.
Oh dear.
Nigel, I love you, man. You know, you've given me some great nights in boxing. I remember, I'll never forget your Anthony Logan knockout when you were basically, you were all at sea and you changed it with the left hand. You gave your balls, your heart, everything for McClellan. But man, come on, you can't do this shit to me. I didn't want to be giving you this sort of award. Don't do it to me, brother.
I can break your heart. Maybe he meant current Ali.
No. I think he saw Tyson Fury in the Batman suit and he thought then Ali wouldn't stand a chance against this guy.
On a similar vein for fighters that you like, Andy, I can break your heart by something that Roberto Duran said.
No, man.
Roberto Duran said in a video, I didn't catch the full quote, but summarise. He's talking about the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. Mayweather looked washed up, not TBE. His dad was better, and he didn't do anything. Don't come back.
See,
Duran.
I think Duran just says whatever he wants to say if there's like money involved, because I actually seen a video was it with Coogan? I think he said to Coogan that Junior's actually TB, but now he's going against that saying something else. I just think it's a bit like Joe Frazier whenever he had the chance to kind of lay the boot into Ali, but then if it came to some sort of financial benefit, he would actually say, yeah, he's a good guy and all that sort of stuff.
It probably depends how much drugs and booze Duran's had before the interview as well, I imagine.
He likes a good bevy, does Duran, like.
It reminds me of Maradona.
He does.
Bastard.
The thing is, Mayweather.
Maradona was at the rugby today.
Right.
I've got one from the Matchroom press team that this week's press release. Not only is the value of the week for the headline Eubank Jr. ... Golovkin, I am coming for you. But we get that nearly every week now anyway. But in the third paragraph it says Golovkin stopped Chris Lemieux after 8 rounds in New York on Saturday night. So Chris seems to be the standard name across the industry. If you don't know the guy's first name, just call him Chris Berto. We've had Chris Lemieux. What was the other Chris we had the other week? So yeah, Chris.
Kurt, you got anything, mate?
Yeah, what about, I don't know, I can't remember the name of the guy at Sky, but having to apologise to viewers because English used the word cojones in an interview.
Oh, was it no Andy Scott? Andy Kerr. Andy Scott, sorry. I mean, it's past the watershed for... I mean, anybody watching boxing that time of night is either it should be in their bed if it's a young kid or anything like that. So, I know they're regulated to be Ofcom and all that sort of nonsense.
These days anyway.
Yeah.
Should have been apologising for the fucking shit fight they just put on.
Yeah. Dave, what you got, mate?
Okay, one, I believe this was from Kell Brook, was interviewed by Michelle Phelps, I believe this is where that came from. He claims he is the man at welterweight. Rumor has it he's not even the man in his bedroom, so that's did you guys mention the one about the headline from Sky Sports? Let me look this one up again.
What the fuck did Eubank say again last night? We're heading all the way for Gennady Golovkin. Gennady Golovkin's going to ruin your ass, by the way.
Sky Sports headline here. Chris Eubank Jr. stops Tony Jeter in phenomenal...
devastating fashion.
Wasn't it in Spectacular Sky debut or something?
Yeah.
Fuck's sake.
Tragic. Paul?
Yeah, I've got one which is Jim Watt calling Gavin McDonnell Jamie McDonnell. I thought that was quite good. Easy mistake to make. They do look rather similar.
Well,
but still.
It's almost as if they're related, isn't it? I mean...
Yeah, slightly different. Called him Jamie. I think he did it twice, but the one was really blatant where he just said Yeah, it's and a great shot by Gavin and it was standard. Oh, I mean, old people forget things all the time, so we shouldn't be mean.
When they've had a few.
Aye.
Yeah, I said last night we're doing really interesting actually.
Nominate
Right.
Nance Palmer for just being a general all-around cunt.
Who?
Nance Palmer.
Oh fuck, this is going to go doing well, man. Jesus. Well, he doesn't listen to us anyway, I suppose. So.
Just despicable
Oh, he
attack on
does,
our
he does, he's a
female
fan.
listeners.
Yeah, it certainly generated a bit of debate anyway. What can you do? You can't live with them, you can't fucking kill them, so you got to put up with them, guys. That's just the way of life, Right, Alex, who gets your nomination? I've got the nominations here. They are Roberto Duran, shit. Nigel Benn, shit. Matchroom press team, Andy Scott for apologising, Jim Watt for the Jamie and Gavin McDonald mix-up. I think that's it.
Kilbrook.
Kilbrook for saying he's the best welterweight in the world, or on the planet, as Nick will say it.
Oh, and Kellerman for comparing
Oh!
Crawford to Sonny Liston.
Fucking, that's tragic as well. Aye, that prick, Max Kellerman, get that fucker in there. That was shocking. He's got to go through every broadcast without. He can't just do it without going into a broadcast without actually mentioning some sort of historical reference stuff.
Yeah,
He reminds me of Jack Johnson in 1912 where he's fighting against Sam McVeigh. Fuck off.
There's a brilliant video if you find it on YouTube, and it's Lou DiBella with Max Kellerman, and basically Lou DiBella just ruins him and says, I know Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker's a friend of mine. Even Pernell Whitaker wants you to stop mentioning Pernell Whitaker, because that's all he does bang on about. But it's a brilliant. It's because Max is wearing a Hawaiian shirt for some reason as well. So it's worth YouTube. Just put DiBella Max Kellerman and he just absolutely destroys him for about 3 minutes.
Good, I need to see that video. Fucking abomination. So, Alex, who gets your vote, mate? Sorry.
I'm going to go with Nigel Benn. I'm going to go with someone who's, we haven't really picked on before. And the other guys we've all given a bit of stick to, but Nigel Benn really came out of a blinder there.
You and I are going to have problems after this podcast, mate. Kurt?
I've got to give it to Sky. We shut them enough, but they need more for that making English. We know he doesn't use bad language. He doesn't go on I Film London because of the bad language. So he wouldn't never use bad language that children might hear and be offended by. So for them to apologise and embarrass him like that was just despicable.
Dave?
Kilbrook. Fuck Brook.
Paul?
I think you got to go with Brook. Shocking.
So, Brook takes the lead. Adam?
I'm going with Sky / Eubank.
So that's Andy Scott apologising, eh?
Yeah.
So that's 2-2 between Kilbrook, Sky / Andy Scott, but I've got the deciding vote, and I'm going to give it. I agree with Dave and Paul. Kilbrook. I think that's glorious. You're the best welterweight in the world, but you haven't really proved it. You've got one decent win at the weight. So, Kilbrook, congratulations. You're a Belly of the Week award winner.
Woo! At least he won something this year.
Yeah, that's true. Right, we'll be about discussion. There's not really much fights next week, but one thing I wanted to mention was the couple of things. Mundine is basically, fuck Mundine. We'll just go to Andre Ward. This guy, man, is a complete parody. Now, the Nevada State Athletic Commission have recently, I think it was today or yesterday, have rejected Rohan Murdoch of Australia as an opponent for Andre Ward's debut at 175, which I believe is full weight. Now, it says it all really that the commission's actually stepping in and saying, look, this guy's a mismatch. But at the same time, guys, it again just draws your attention to how corrupt these sanctioning bodies are. Because this guy, Murdoch, is actually ranked number 6 with the WBO. How the hell does this happen if he's never fought anyone? I mean, I've seen it enough times. I don't know how often we keep going on about it. So, who's going to get the call, guys? Is it going to be Paul Smith against some other fat Liverpudlian's going to get the call to fly over?
Well, I said earlier, Tony Jetta, surely. That's the perfect opponent to shake that ring rust off. I mean,
Who's
Andre
that?
Ward,
Jetta? Who's that?
Eubank victim.
No, that's Johnny Drama, mate. That's no fucking
Johnny Drama. But in terms of Ward, I mean, does he not realise that things like this are just making him more, causing more embarrassment and more annoyance with boxing fans? I mean, he's got a style that a lot of fans don't even take to anyway. But the way he acts, his diva attitude, and yes, he was out of the ring a while. He wanted to shake the ring and stuff, so he fought Paul Smith. They could legitimise that a bit by saying, Smith had been in with Abraham twice and gave him a decent effort. Fair enough. But now you're going in with some guy, some home and away actor that no one's heard of, has shaken off more ring rust. I mean, this guy is potentially, let's be honest, let's call the jokes, potentially the best fighter on the planet, and he's fighting Paul Smith, some Aussie. It's not good enough. I mean, Mayweather, we saw, he went out for a couple of years. He came back against Marquez. I don't expect every fighter to do that, but you've had your fight with Paul Smith. You've gone your 8-9 rounds, and now you're fighting a guy who's even worse than Paul Smith. It shouldn't it be the other way around?
Well, this is the thing. Is this not meant to be the warm up for fucking Kovalev?
Exactly. I mean, if you're going to take these guys on as,
I don't understand it.
You might as well just go in with Kovalev straight off.
How do you take a step down from Paul Smith? I mean, that's hard enough to do for a world level fighter, but I mean, why? I don't understand.
And considering Ward has spent so much time out of the ring I'm not going to say it wasn't his fault, but because of the issues he was having with his former promoter, he doesn't have that issue anymore. He's obviously been given the slot on a decent show, and he just seems to I don't know, either he doesn't want to fight anyone decent, or he doesn't feel like he wants to go that level. I mean, you have a look at the WBA super middleweight rankings, presuming he fights at super middleweight, and there's a couple. Well, I don't know whether he'll be an in between or not.
He won't make that weight anymore.
There's one very, very good guy there. Isaac Ekpo.
Do you know, mate? I've just about to. I've got his box record right in front of me. Because I was just about to say, Isaac Ekpo, 27-2, 20 knockouts, Nigeria's finest. He's
some guy. He's from the prison canteen.
He's prison canteen graduates.
He's a prison canteen graduate, but he made the short flight over from Nigeria to Accra and Ghana. So I mean, he's done it the hard way, gone the distance with Stieglitz, and fought the mighty Flash Azaka, and one of the 28 commies who fight out of the prison canteen. So he's also a well-ranked guy. So. But I don't know what are you going to do. I don't understand the problem. There's nothing more confusing right now to me than Andre Ward. Paul Smith, he got slammed, but like I say, we gave it a pass because he hadn't fought and blah blah. But he's been given a chief support slot on what will be the second biggest pay-per-view of the year. What is he doing?
I don't understand it at all.
What is the point in sticking him on that card, though? I mean, is it like, let's boost pay-per-view sales. Let's stick Andre Ward on. The 14 people at his church will buy the pay-per-view. What is the point? I mean, he's got really no fans, and it's a shame because when he fought Kessler, that place was packed out with people, just like Terence Crawford. But slowly but surely, it's just gone downhill because he's just lost all relevancy. He sits on, in his interviews talking about all his wins and his Super Six. Well, how long can you dine out on them for? I mean, it's just a joke now. I mean, he's become a parody, like you said, and we want to see the Kovalev fight. HBO have had to time to some free fight deal because they want to see the Kovalev fight, so we're probably going to get absolute crap from him until he goes in with Kovalev, and Kovalev has to wait around, fight Pascal again, and probably someone, like Chalemba who beats him, and then waiting around for Ward, and Kovalev won't care. This is what I like about Kovalev. He won't make no diva demands. He's been to Wales, he went to Philly for Hopkins, he would go to Montreal for Pascal, he would go there for Stevenson. He'll go to the Oracle Arena in California for Andre Ward, and he'll go there trying to knock him out, and he won't care for the judges and all the refugees from California. That's why Kovalev will want this fight, and Kathy Diva knows that they want the fight, so I just Ward will try and get out of it anyway he can, I think.
Throw out some names that Ward could be fighting instead. What should he be doing here? I think 175 is like a whole fresh start for him because 168 was just it was great until of course he had that stint of inactivity. But now is his chance to come back and do something big. How about Jürgen Brammer? Go over there and take the title from him.
He's got a passport.
Go take out some undefeated like Oosthuizen. I guess actually he's fighting Brammer next, so maybe take on the winner.
What about the guy who fought Pascal and most people thought he beat him? What's wrong with him?
That'd
be a great fight.
He's got a fight in December apparently, and I forget who told me that.
He needs something big, like something significant here to get people back on his side.
I mean, I'd rather see Gonzalez against Kovalev rather than the Pascal rematch.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely zero need for a rematch here. None whatsoever.
Yeah, that's garbage. I mean, Pascal lost to Gonzalez anyway. I mean, that was pretty clear.
That's true. There should be a rematch there rather than the fucking Kovalev rematch. But I mean, I tell you, just talking about 168. Actually, I was watching a fighter last week. Anybody have seen this Vincent Feigenboots fight before?
He's crap.
Oh,
he fought
man,
last November, you know, on the.
I know. All he is
He's
a
heavily undercard.
all he is a D-level strongman. Honestly, God, he should just be in the gym just fucking pumping weights because he's not a boxer. Put it that way. He's just wild, crazy, and okay, he's got maybe a punching power, but that guy is going to get tooled with
Is
something.
he with Sauerland?
Sauerland, yeah. He lost that fight last week.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at their roster. I mean, Sauerland have been such a powerhouse over in Germany. I know they've got George Groves, but if you see some of their roster now, it seems to be, they seem to be a bit thin, seems to be a bit Frank Warren, a bit better than that, but seems to be going the same kind of way. I mean, obviously Huck went, Abraham's still there and he's their biggest star, but he ain't got long left now. And then, Groves lost, David Price, waste of time. I mean, there's not much there for them at the moment.
Right, next topic, Granny Golovkin pay-per-view numbers. Well, depending on who you speak to, actually, if it's a hater, then bombed. If it's a fanboy, it's his first foray into pay-per-view market. But according to Tom Lawfer, anyway, it will do just over 150,000 buys, which was the number we originally based things on when we talked to Lemieux's promoter Golden Boy about making the fight to determine how much Lemieux would need and what Granny would need. I'm going to state here, I thought it would have a good chance to break 200,000, but with all the college football games and no way to predict the Mets would be meeting the Cubs, a high-end playoff series, it was tough. A lot of people were watching baseball in those big markets, but overall we were happy with the event. When you can sell every ticket to Madison Square Garden and generate a gate of over 2 million, you're happy.
Ultimately, it's pretty clear their pay-per-view buys were below projections and somewhat disappointing.
What I did notice, actually, I was surprised at how quick these numbers came out compared to, did they release numbers for Mayweather against Berto? Have they been released yet?
It was bad.
Not officially.
No, so that means it was bad.
Right, okay. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and wax lyrical with pay-per-view numbers and stuff. I think it's really tedious that Mayweather fans would use it as some sort of kind of yardstick to say that Pacquiao deserved less or whatever and stuff like that. I think Canelo did 300,000 against Angulo, which would you say that's pretty poor, seeing as, you think Canelo's maybe this next upcoming star. I think Mayweather's first pay-per-view did 300,000 against, it wasn't Judah, who was it? Chavez? Jesus Chavez, I think.
Gatti wasn't his first pay-per-view.
No, Corrales, I think it was Corrales was the first pay-per-view, am I right? I can't mind, it was one of the other.
Mayweather was Gatti's, wasn't it?
Definitely Gatti.
Yeah,
well, I think it did 300,000 or something like that, so...
And Gatti was the A-side.
Yeah, the thing is, I think I was expecting around 200. I thought that'd be a fine number. And 150. It sounds bad, but what does it sound bad against? If you're comparing against Mayweather, Pacquiao, I suppose. Golovkin 3 years ago was fighting. He was brought over. No one really knew him in the United States. He's more of a YouTube guy. That Europeans knew about. Now he's headline a pay-per-view against a guy like Lemieux, who I think he's only been on HBO once before. He's only fought out of Canada or Montreal once before. You got a good undercard like in Roman Gonzalez against Valoria, but again, two names that are not really going to drive pay-per-view sales. And the thing is, people make the mistake that I see on Twitter a lot of the Mayweather fanboys. This is all they've got now. Their idol's gone now, so they're going to try and trash other people's pay-per-views. But the thing is, they needed this to be pay-per-view because Lemieux wanted good money to take the fight, so HBO wouldn't pay it, so they needed it. The purses were like $2 million for Golovkin, 1.5 for Lemieux, 150,000 buys. Do the maths, $60 a pop, $2 million at the gate. A Madison Square Garden record for merchandise in the arena for the event. So all in all, yeah, it tells you that Golovkin's not ready to be a pay-per-view star. And he probably won't be ever ready unless it's in fights with like Canelo and Cotto. And to me, that's how it should be. I'm glad that happened because fights should be pay-per-view, not a fighter. And I don't want to see Golovkin Lemieux or Golovkin Andy Lee pay-per-view. I think Golovkin against the Canelo Cotto, that's a pay-per-view fight, and then the rest of them should be regular HBO.
Yeah, even for Mayweather, the opponent was very significant. The only time you see Floyd actually breaking records and stuff with pay-per-view is against huge opponents, huge stars. Floyd did, just decent numbers. I mean, he's pay-per-view star is a kind of strange word. It depends who they're fighting. It's always going to depend what the fight is. It's not just the one guy. It's never just one attraction.
Anyone else want to weigh in with us before we move on?
Talk about what's sort of tangentially related is Canelo's response to.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I was moaning at people, but this is what it's all about now. You get guys like Cotto and fucking Mayweather wanting to lay down demands and stuff, but catch weights and Paul, what do you call him, Andre Ward doing the same shit and stuff. You know, I can see the haters saying the same thing. Well, you know, he's coming down to 154 for Floyd. That's fucking Floyd Mayweather you're talking about here. This is like the biggest money you could get in the fucking sport, so I can see them taking the risk. Canelo, is he going to earn any more money than $2 million than what he did for Lemieux to fight Canelo? I mean, Canelo's going to be fucking, he's going to be the queen in this. He's going to be the one, I'm the A side, I will have this, I've got the Mexican market and all that sort of shit. Put it this way, the way I heard Oscar De La Hoya speak last week, he is not in a rush to make that a fight anytime soon. And another fucking fact is, I don't blame him, because as Lou DiBella told us, his career will get fucking ruined if he gets in there with Golovkin. He is getting his ginger balls smashed up, Fantabolics is getting destroyed, and that'll be the end of his career before he's 28 years old.
I disagree, and I'll tell you one thing as well. Canelo, obviously, I was quite pleased I was quite pleased the pay-per-view didn't do very well, because anything that stops pay-per-view I'm happy with. So the fact that it didn't bomb but it didn't succeed was good for me. But Canelo is in such a strong position with the negotiations, it's not even going to be, how can they even get that fight? If I'm Canelo, would I give Golovkin, would I give him 40%? No. Would I give him 30%? Probably not. As daft as that sounds, because of how good he is, in terms of his commercial value, and as much as he rated well on regular HBO, it didn't translate to pay-per-view buys, and Canelo is quite possibly now, Manny Pacquiao aside, the biggest pay-per-view star in the world. So he's got all the power. And if he beats Cotto, and if he does beat Cotto, I can completely understand why he wouldn't want to fight Golovkin, but I think the fans would demand it, and I don't think that Canelo has shown in the past that he'd duck a challenge. When he took on Mayweather, he's fought guys like Trout, Lara, guys that would quite tricky and you wouldn't want him to be in with. I think Canelo is such a big guy that this assumption that Golovkin would just walk through and destroy him, I think, is a bit over the top. I don't think Golovkin would fight him that way. I'd probably pick Golovkin to win the fight. In fact, I'm fairly certain I would, but it wouldn't be a 2-round battering, that's for sure. It wouldn't affect it. I wouldn't end Canelo's career, in my opinion.
I will.
Andy,
if that goes any longer than 6 rounds, Canelo will never be the same fighter again. His best thing is to get a clean, quick knockout. Something that doesn't give a lot of damage.
Then you could also call it that his fans could also sort of dismiss it as a fluke if it just one punch.
Get a rematch and finish the job. Adam.
Andy, as you're the king of lineal champions, if Canelo does beat Cotto next month, is he seriously going to be classed as the lineal middleweight champion?
Unfortunately, mate, yep. That's a sad reality, but, what can we do about it? The lineal title is a lineal title. I mean, you could go back in history and argue the toss about Roy Jones and Darius Michalczewski and stuff like that, who some people actually had different claimants to the title, I think, at the time. So, yeah, I mean, it's a shame, because I think since Hopkins basically unified the titles and stuff and became the first unified or first undisputed champion since, I think it was James Toney, I think was the last one, it's going to end. I mean, it's the oldest lineage in world boxing just now as the middleweight title, and it's going to end. If Cotto wins this fight, that's it. You forget about it, because he won't. I really do believe he will not fight Golovkin. And I heard Freddie Roach stating on the YouTube videos and stuff, oh yeah, we're thinking about taking that fight. Freddie Roach is a known bullshitter and just basically opens his mouth whenever he wants to and stuff like that. Because anybody who disputes this, listen to Bob Arum talk to him about the time when Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao talks were in. He was told, keep your fucking mouth shut. So, there you go.
They'll go back to 154.
Yeah. I just think, personally, I think Canelo will fight Golovkin. I think this talk about it has to be one. That's just him, just showing his power. I think I don't expect for 1 second him to fight Cotto on November 21st and then fight Golovkin in April. I think he'll have another fight before Golovkin and he'll fight him at the end of the year. That's what I think. He'll look for have 2 more fights before Golovkin, and Golovkin will have to bide his time. Hopefully, get the Johnson fight out of the way and hopefully get the Andy Lee. Well, I don't think Billy Joe Saunders will fight him, but hopefully Andy Lee wins that fight and I can see that fight being made. But, I mean, I think if you look at Canelo, I was criticising him in the past, but he's shown that, when the fans want to fight, he'll take the fight. I mean, he had no reason whatsoever to fight Erislandy Lara. De La Hoya came out and said he didn't want that fight for him because even if he won that fight, Lara was going to make him look bad, and he did, and many people felt Lara deserved the nod in that fight, but he fought that fight, and I said it before, whatever you think Golovkin will do to him, Golovkin's going to be right in front of him a lot more than someone like Lara is, who's always moving and he's so tricky and defensive. And I think Canelo will definitely fancy his, landing lever on Golovkin, like other people have in the past. But I just think that fight will happen, but it's going to be a lot of posturing from Canelo and Golovkin. It's just whether they'll take, whether they'll jump through hoops and take the deal. Like I said, that's the difference between him and Kovalev. I think Kovalev is happy just to go anywhere and take the fight, and Golovkin, now he's selling out these arenas, he might not want to bow down to that and might just be happy, doing what he's doing.
Both guys are about the same size. They rehydrate about the same. So I think Golovkin, if he can make that 155, I think it's going to be just as hard for Canelo to make that at this point. Both guys will struggle to make that weight. Just take the deal and destroy him because he's going to win the fight.
But it's just, this is what annoys about the sport. I mean, we've got all these world titles, 17 weight classes, and now you got guys like Canelo and Cotto inventing a new weight class. I mean, we've had Danny Green with his, Danny weight. We've got Canelo now having 3 of his last 4 fights at 155, and Cotto going all over the shop, never daring to go at 160, but holding the title there. It's just nonsense. I mean, do what they used to do in the past, fight at the weight, or just don't fight at the weight at all and just stay in your own weight. I mean, I just don't get it. What's a few pounds? I don't see an issue. I mean, Canelo, didn't they do a 30-day out weigh and he's weighing, 169 pounds or something? So it just makes no sense to me.
That's the shit fest of a sport we have today.
No. I tell you what, I'm really fatigued. See, leading up to Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao, I was really fatigued with the sport, and just, these last few months, man, it's just been so fucking depressing. As I said, I was digging out old fights last night, just watching it, rather than watch live boxing. That's how bad it's getting. But before we move on, guys, I want to know, someone want to fill me in here about this little cocksocket prick, Prince, what's his name? Fucking Fanny Boys, anyway, whatever his name is.
Prince Patel.
Fucking press.
Got 2 big wins in boxing. That means he's the next big thing.
Right, so he's been basically slagging off Barry Jones in front of his face on live television. What a cunt.
Yeah, so he was on Steve Bunce's show, and he was taught that Steve, first of all, the very first seconds into the show, he called Steve Bunce Barry, so it was he didn't know who he was talking to. He's got form for this because there's a bit in a Coogan interview, the very first one, when he called, I can't think what it was, Kevin Campion Coogan or something. Like, he just obviously doesn't seem to pay attention to who he's actually talking to. And then he basically said that no one knows Barry, no one remembers Barry. And when Bunce put up a really sort of soft defence of what they do, he came up against one of the best fighters at the time. Barry held the belt that De La Hoya did later on, and it was a significant title. Prince just went, no, it wasn't, and no one knows who Barry Jones is. But like I say, do you know what? Maybe and like I said, if Prince Patel, I can't believe that's how he is genuinely, because nobody.
Was there not a behind the scenes thing at some show? Eddie Hearn was at, or whatever it was, and he was in the back. Who the fuck was it he was arguing with? And they said, "Oh, we can get it on right now." Who the fuck was it?
Oh, he's obviously that he always calls out Charlie Edwards every 5 seconds, so that's the fight that he really wants. But like I said, the Patel, like I said, I don't hate on it because, you know what, he's playing a bullshit character, and Box Nation and they're absolutely lapping it up. Steve Goodwin let go potentially because, like I said, we can say what you want about Patel. He's actually he's got a talent. He's a good fighter. They let someone go because of the kind of attitude and what he displayed. Warren's picked him up, and now we're going to be subjected to it. Where you think of how many good Frank Warren fighters can't get on that Bunce show. And he's only got 1 show a week, and they waste a guest spot on a prospect who's 2-0, who comes on and insults somebody who, you know, there aren't many universally liked people in boxing, but Barry Jones is certainly one of them. And to come on and say to his face that getting beat by Aslana Freitas meant nothing, and his world title was nothing, and no one remembers him. It's just, you know, he's an embarrassment.
He's probably got a point about the world title winning. I think even Barry accepts that as well. I don't think he actually fully appreciated or accepted that he was a world champion or whatever. But yeah, you're spot on about him being a really nice guy. And I mean, Barry's always been approachable and stuff, you know. So
without doubt, though, Patel's making a business move here. He's going for the Floyd thing. Although to me, I see more of a Broner. He's not very polished, but he obviously wants he's going for the heel angle that people will pay to see him lose. But I don't know. I haven't never seen him fight. He's only fought twice. How good is he? Like, what's his ceiling like? To anybody who has.
He's absolute shite.
He lost to Charlie Edwards multiple times in the amateurs.
Never seen him, mate. But, he's been getting like
I think it was 4.
I think a few people.
I mean, you see, like if his boxing isn't up to scratch, I mean, it's gonna just come to a screeching halt. You know, it's like Uzi Usman when he did all that posturing and dancing into the ring, only to get knocked out in the first 10 seconds. You know, it's like, well, that didn't really get you very far.
A couple of points on it. I thought Buncey handled it really well, to be fair, and he stopped him at the right times and defended Barry Jones. Buncey also dropped in a line about you've had your 7 minutes, and I remember that because he said something along the lines to us. So yeah, Buncey. I'm still a fan of Buncey, even though he's not a fan of us.
Buncey's a fan of us. He's actually following Donny just now on Facebook, on Twitter just now. So it's like, know your enemy just now, eh?
Well, yeah.
Some insider was telling Kurt actually in the QT, we'll discuss it or brag about it, but apparently we're in the top 3 boxing podcasts in the UK, apparently.
Whoop. Well, Adam's just, mentioned Buncey there. I don't actually hate on him. You know, he gave us stick for interviewing Eddie Hearn, and it went over 7 minutes. And I think most people enjoyed the interview, and Hearn was very good on it, and he didn't like it. He came off like a bitter dinosaur that he is, to be honest. And he after trashing us, he then has that prick on their show, and to me it just really speaks volumes about how low Box Nation must be, that they'll get that useless piece of trash on the show to try and boost numbers. And not only that, but they'll have him answering a Q&A on Twitter. I mean, most of the questions, they're not even about boxing. They're just, this guy is a wannabe Broner, he's a wannabe Floyd, but he's just, I think Dave asked about his boxing. If this guy didn't go on there and trash, Barry, we wouldn't even be talking about Prince Patel, and we wouldn't be talking about him probably in the next 12 months or the next year after that, because he's absolutely useless. He's crap, and he's just trying to get as many headlines as possible. He talks about, what did he mention? Getting me on means views. Well, I had a look at his Twitter today. I've got almost 4,000 more followers than him. So, if you want views, come to Kurt Ward, not Prince Petal.
I had something else I was going to throw in there, but it's went right out of my mind. It's been one of these fucking weeks, but I suppose...
Point on Patel.
Yeah.
When was the last time, other than Lomachenko, that we spoke about a lad that's 2-0? So he's doing something right. He's an idiot, or he's doing something...
Yeah, he's doing something right, but it's not in the right place, mate. It's not in the ring. It's all in front of a camera. I mean, it's okay. Everybody can talk a good fight. I mean, I could stand up here, no problem, and wax lyrical for 10 minutes saying I could beat any cunt on the planet. But then when it comes down to it,
I'm happy to see him talk, though. I mean, because that'll just make it his loss after his upset loss after like 4 or 5 fights that much sweeter.
You're not going to put him in with anything, though. That's the problem. Just going to be... I mean, Box Nation are obviously selling him. That's why he was on Buncey's show. That's why they obviously put him on the fucking Twitter account. They're trying to sell him. They're trying to spin everything round.
What weight is he?
He's flyweight, isn't he? Yeah.
Flyweight? See, I should know this shit. I don't even know anything about him.
You don't.
Well, he's tall, so he could go pretty high, to be honest, weight-wise, bantam, super bantam.
The fact that Warren signed him and Romeo, Valentino, whatever his name is, the 2 most unlikable, irritating cunts in British boxing, I mean, it just speaks volumes about Frank Warren's stable that he has to sign these guys because they're useless, but they might get people to buy a few tickets to see him lose. I mean, but I say if you're a fan who's going to buy a ticket and spend your money to go and see these two bums lose, you need some help, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I suppose this leads us into the final part of the show, which is the fight schedule, which is pretty brutal looking for next week, guys. So I've got a question sent in here from who was it now? From Paco. I'll leave that till next week, mate. So we'll probably need some of this stuff for next week. But Friday, I think this might be on Box Nation. I'm not too sure. But Jamie Cox faces off against Frenik Albert for the WBO European super middleweight title. This guy's from Romania by way of Hungary, so hope to check his bags on the way over here. He's not got any Syrian refugees in the back yet anyway. So Friday night also sees on Bounce TV Tony Thompson against Malik Scott. A drugs cheat against a diver. So
I mean, it's like when you see a fight and you think, it's over for the loser. It's like you just think, well, can both losers both of them just end up after this fight? I mean, where does the winner go? I mean, who really cares now,
And finally, Saturday sees NBC having the card on from Texas. I think top of the bill is Jermell Charlo against Joaquim Alcine.
What a fight.
Gentlemen, that is your fight schedule for next week. Don't all rush in at once here and tell me what you think. But
that Charlo Alcine fight, as Cal Brook would say, it's an absolute barnstormer, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's probably the best fight next weekend too, and it's garbage. Well, actually, no, you got to give Malik Scott versus Tony Thompson, even though that's probably going to be pretty cute to watch.
Oh, it's going to be awful, but it's at least like
at least it'll be funny. I mean, Thompson might roll up 270 pounds and just it might be a bit of a laugh, I'd say.
Roll up by his wife's wheelchair.
Malik Scott might quit in the first round, so there you go.
Nah, without even taking a punch.
Who thinks he threw that fight though? I don't know.
Against Wilder, I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he went out against Chisora like it as well.
Yeah. See, it's a funny count at the end of the day, but what can you do about it? But that's it, guys. I mean, I really don't know what else you want me to lead into here, but I've got nothing else that's pressing on my mind. It's just a shame about the Google Hangouts fucking up because of Kurt's internet with the bad weather and that. We were doing pretty well there. No IT issues on YouTube and stuff, and then bang, Kurt returns to the pod, takes it down with us.
Right, you can't blame YouTube for this one. Like, Mixler was actually problematic. YouTube just working fine for the most part.
So, Matt.
Before we go, I wanted to plug your guys' interview with Bryn Jonathan Butler. I wanted to do this last week, but I finally caught up with it. Really good stuff, and learned new things about Rigo, Tyson, and Roy, and it gave me a particularly new perspective on Roy Jones. So, well done. Check it out.
Cheers for that, mate. I mean, it was really interesting, as me and Alex were saying actually after the interview, is how no one will actually go near that allegation towards Customato.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd actually never heard that before, but after hearing it, it does make you think because, what has been going on recently with, people, famous people as well, it does make you think, but, I've never heard that before, and I've never heard of anyone really talking about it, and I doubt anyone ever will.
So, on that point, I better say goodbye on my copyright issue. Thanks to Alex Morris, Kurt Ward, Paul Webb, Dave the Hater, Adam Smith. I don't think we had anybody else in the call. Thanks a lot to all you non-callers again. He's fucking induct us once more. He had a chance. Quack, Adonis Stevenson, avoid Honest. I've been your host, Andy Patterson. We'll maybe do a video during the week, who knows, but if not, we'll see you next week. Have a good week. All the best. Cheers.
Fuck Prince Patel.